All right, we are back in Senate institutions with the House institutions and conference committee on May 8th. And Chair Emmons is going to give us the most recent package from the House of the non-3B capital.
Right. I mean, so this is dealing, there's a couple of items that's still cash. There's 3, and then there's some bonded issues as well. So what we're putting on the table is the dry hydrant program. You have 35,000 more in cash. We accept that. For water,
What are these all on one page?
you know, it's
No,
just
they're-
line.
Okay,
This is
so dry hydrant is on page.
132.
Okay,
The fish and wildlife, that is on lines 81. We accept the 25,000, but we have language. And the language for that would be fish and wildlife will incorporate in their budget requests going forward. Money for the wildlife propagation and maintenance. Because the tanks that are being purchased are state-owned property. And they are being, they're installed at Weed Hatchery and I think Bald Hill was the other one. And they're being maintained by the state as well. So the state the money needs to go to the state. It's a state-owned equipment. And we're asking for Fish and Wildlife to include that in their budget request going forward. The 45,000 on line 109, that's the incubator. We are proposing that gets shifted over to the building community grants because that's really more part of a grant program. And we would really feel that it's either the recreational grant or the educational grant would be appropriate for that. That's really where that needs to reside. And so we would move the project, ask them to go through the building community grants, and then we would put that 45,000 up to we're going to make the community grants full to make sure that there's money there for the incubator for them to apply. So this is how we're gonna achieve this. So we're gonna move that 45,000 cash up to major maintenance cash. Okay. So this is where you gotta follow.
yeah,
Major maintenance currently has in cash 600,000 that came from the 3Bs. So you add the 45,000. So right now, major maintenance would have 645,000 in cash, more than what we passed.
It's a total of 1.5 million.
and
That would be 1.5 million in the cash item.
that's BGS major maintenance,
Major
not
maintenance.
community.
Right, I'll get it to the community.
Okay,
We want to make sure we cover what we're recommending this year. So we can't keep moving cash. So we're gonna go back into major maintenance bond. So major maintenance has, right now, they are to the good. Cash and bonded for FY26, they are to the good, 645,000.
based on the changes that we made.
Right. So we're saying of the bonded amount, take 300,000 of that 645 and make the community grants full to the House position. And that's how we work with the incubator space. So we go back to the House position, building community grants at 300,000 each.
And so that's in
That's
section
300.
5, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those
Yep.
programs.
That's 300,000. So we're taking 300 of the 645,000. We're taking 300,000 bonded dollars, building community grants. The remainder, 345,000. We are proposing, we go back to the House position on section 2 for 3-acre parcel, firing range and 32 cherries. Because those dollars are gonna be needed next year. That was specified. I know BGS was willing to have some movement, but they were very clear they needed these dollars next year. So we have found some money to make these projects whole. So there's 345,000 left of the 645. In discussions with BGS, if you go over to public safety, lines 114, there is 2 million in bonded money in 26 and 2 million in bonded money in 27 for design and construction of the Rutland Field Station.
Okay.
It's online.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
114.
The 2 million.
They're not going to be going as forward of that next year as they had planned. So we're proposing pulling 355,000 from the 2 million. Add that to the 345,000 that we had left over. You're at 700,000, and we bring back to the house position the 3-acre parcel, the firing range, and 32 cherry.
I don't understand why we need to pop stuff into major maintenance and then get it out, but I think
That's bonded dollars.
okay.
You gotta allocate it towards those projects.
Okay, so you had to move it up there.
Yeah, have to, because we can't pull the cash.
We put the.
Oh,
You
I
put
see.
the
We
cash
already
in.
agreed on the other cash.
Can't pull the cash because that's gonna screw up appropriations.
Okay, so let me,
So it'll be bonded. We have increased the total of major maintenance for 2 years by 1 point. It'll be by 645.
okay, I was following the numbers. Now let's follow the projects. So the last few projects that you mentioned were the 3-acre parcel, the Academy, Pittsburgh Academy,
And 32 cherry.
and
Bring those back.
I'm not seeing,
32 cherry line.
well, the firing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there it is. The 200,000
Mhm.
and then the 500,000.
So between those 3 projects, you cut 700,000. We're saying go back to our recommend, which restores what you have cut. And the total for section 2 that was cut was 700,000. We have found the money to restore that.
Okay, I would really appreciate somebody being able to write this down. Between the two, not necessarily right now, but we have, please, we need to document, it, all right?
Yeah,
So let's,
you want me to go through it again? I can do that.
I think I'm good, but do you have questions?
I guess I have 2
Okay.
questions. One was, I just missed this, how much is coming from Rutland Field Station?
355.
And the other was, yesterday we agreed on the cash being what it was.
We
Was it-
said 600. Yesterday, we were with the 2.5 million for the 3Bs. That frees up 600,000 in cash.
My question was, you mentioned an agreement earlier about yesterday.
The 2.5 million.
I understood that we had done all of the cash yesterday, so keep
But-
that too.
But we're keeping the cash. You were at 3.1.
Right, I guess as it was, so not the total, but okay, now I understand.
You were at 3.1. We were at 2.5. That's 600,000. We moved that up to major maintenance cash. We didn't let go of the cash. We kept the cash.
No, I know. I'm just asking about your understanding of the agreement of the cash column in its entirety from yesterday.
We didn't agree to the total amount on the cash column.
Okay.
We were talking about 3Bs. We had not addressed the rest of the bill. We're only talking about the 3Bs. We're talking about the 3 projects for 625,000 of your Senate appropriation asked you folks to pick up, which was the fire truck, the St. Albans Recovery Building you were gonna buy, and the Montpelier study. Those 3 with the money got shifted back to approach, but we had not talked about any of the other items in the capital.
Okay, do you want to talk about the walleye?
No, I want to talk about what, Senator Funk is talking about. When you left here yesterday, you said the only thing you had left was some bonded dollar,
It
amount.
was the rest of the projects.
That's the bonded dollar amount, so
But
I,
we hadn't agreed to those three projects of dry hydrants, walleyes, or the incubator. We had not agreed to that. We had not talked about that. That was all part of the rest of the bill dealing with bonded dollars.
well, I'm going back on your words of what you said earlier today, just a few minutes ago, that we had an agreement. And the agreement was that we were done with the cash part of it. And that we were just on the bonded dollar.
We
part.
were done with 3Bs and discussing a shift of the 625,000 of those other three projects that went back to Senate appropriations. That's the context that we were negotiating yesterday. We were not negotiating the dry hydrants. We were not negotiating walleyes, and we were not negotiating the incubator space, and we were not negotiating the rest of the bonded dollars. There was more to the bill that we had to negotiate. What we were talking about yesterday and what we agreed to was your JFO language. We agreed to that. We agreed that the 625,000 for those three projects, the Senate appropriations asked us to pick up, that gets moved back to the appropriations bill. And we agreed to 2.5 million for the 3Bs, not 3.1. And the language. That's what we agreed to. So there could have been a misunderstanding, but
Yeah,
that's.
wasn't
what
on
we
our
agreed
part,
to.
I guess. I guess it's gonna be kind of hard to put a capital bill together here this year. I don't see it happening.
If you want that to happen, that's fine.
It is what it is.
Can you expand on that?
I just, we had an agreement and you guys are going back on it now.
We had an agreement, and what I just explained, Senator, we did not agree to walleyes, we did not agree to hydrants. We said we had to have more information on the hydrants, and we needed more information. That's what we said.
Yeah, we agreed to the bulk, just, description of the projects.
And we also said there'd be
625,000.
money, there'd be language coming in on the walleyes that we were still working on.
All right, so let's go on these, one by one. The walleye language. What do you think about that? Or do you want time to think about it?
Yeah, I think, I think we need to, take a break. And then
Okay.
maybe hear from,
We-
Alex and, while they're here, maybe.
All right, but we have this deadline.
I can go and talk to appropriations about the deadline.
Okay. All right, so in the meantime, let's have Alex come up and we'll stay in committee to talk to Alex.
But six of us?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, and then we can disband and talk among ourselves. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
Do you want to identify yourself?
Sure. Oh, yeah. For the record,
Yeah.
Alex Farrell, Commissioner of the Department of Housing and Community Development. Um,
Do you want to do you have an?
I think maybe, yeah, whatever the points of clarification that Nick couldn't fill in, I'm happy with.
Well, what happened was we agreed to specific language yesterday,
Sure.
saying that the funding would, I don't know,
This is a municipally.
it's basically, that the funding will go to municipally owned,
Right.
items. So the word wasn't items.
Right.
But then the administration, including you was advised that that wouldn't work, that language, or at least it wouldn't result in all of those three entities and projects, which are all great, wonderful, valuable projects. It would not result in all of them being funded.
Right.
And you came back with different proposed language, which is too loose in my opinion, and it's too loose in others' opinion. And so that's where we are.
So the nuance there is that the municipality is an owner in the Ben High project. They have a 50-year lease. So that structure is what would be the block there. Winston Crowdy, I'd need to talk to the owners of, or talk to the nonprofit to better understand how to fit in for them. They are extending a municipal line, but I was operating under the assumption the nonprofit would own that line once it went into their property. It's, Madam Chair, I wonder if the gallery could give us that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That would be helpful.
So what we proposed is more flexible language. It would still go to the same projects. In one, it's, easy municipal ownership. In the other, it's a long-term lease, 50 years that I don't see the town, I assume even at the end of that 50 years, the town would remain in that space. As for Winston Crowdy, it's a municipal line they're extending. It's just a matter of, I can't say for sure who would own the line.
Is that, so in Barry, would they own the line?
Yeah, in Barry, they don't.
And there's a road.
Could it be a road?
Yeah.
There's a road, so that's gonna be a municipal road.
And they're just doing it themselves. So there's no,
But the testimony we received when we first heard this was road and water sewer infrastructure. So is that town owned?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
town owned.
city, yeah, Barry City, yeah.
And then for the Brattleboro one, there was a pump house. Is that town owned?
Pump house and line.
It's town owned.
I think the pump house probably would, because it'd be on their line, but I need to go back and look at prior testimony from Chloe at the nonprofit to know who would actually own the pump house once it's installed.
So the only one that there is no municipally owned anything is Bennington. So where would the dollars go, state dollars go for that budget?
It'd be going in, because they're gonna have this 50-year lease on a great deal of the space. This would be going in to enable the infrastructure for the building. So
Who would actually get the check from the state?
the municipality, the grant would go to the municipality. The municipality would then have a grant agreement in place with the developer to make sure that, I think, geothermal wells and whatever other infrastructure for the building would get developed.
Does the municipality know that?
Yes, that the municipality does know that. I've talked to Dan Monks at length about this. And the senator chatted with Dan Monks again this morning.
Who's the senator?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought, yeah. But it'd probably be too late to have Dan come in and testify in the meeting, but I feel
So
comfortable.
the whole issue around this is Bennington, is that true?
I wouldn't say that, because I can't say for sure that Winston Crowdy planned on turning ownership over to the town.
And then Barry, is it really clear it's town owned or not?
Barry's the clearest one, yeah. Because they don't have a developer on
And
it,
where would the check for Barry go?
just to the town, city, I'm sorry,
And where would the check for Brattleboro go?
to the town who would sub-grant to the nonprofit Winston Crowdy.
So you're saying for all three projects, the check goes to the town or city?
The town, yeah, that's right. We would always enter into a grant agreement with the municipality.
So maybe that, okay. Have you got a grant agreement with the municipality?
We do in one of those cases, we would draw this up as a separate grant agreement specific for these dollars.
We don't know that language.
The
Grant agreement language.
Right.
There's that. I'm just thinking about our process. Obviously, we need to get the vast majority of this done. But I don't know if we would have time to look at single grant agreements before all of this is complete.
I think it's unlikely that we could draw the full grant agreement,
Yeah.
just because I know my council likes to.
Right. But when we just started with the outline of town owned, that was an issue. So, so fundamental portions of the agreement should be worked out.
Yeah, I think municipally owned or long.
Publicly owned, just say publicly owned.
Publicly
It could be
owned.
state,
That's, yeah, that's actually probably better. Publicly owned or where there's a long-term public lease would cover.
so then this group would need to agree on that. That component is the most important component.
That would provide the flexibility.
Which part of the publicly owned?
And the lease
Or
being part, or long-term lease, and we would say at least 30 years, 50 years.
Yeah,
About having a grant agreement in place before the money is released.
That's, sounds reasonable.
I haven't discussed that with our conference.
I can do that.
All right,
Okay.
so unless somebody has something else,
Or we gotta figure out language if we're gonna change something. Or not.
well, the language right now that we've agreed to would prohibit, or
Right.
would not allow what you're talking about.
Right.
So what
So-
looks promising to me would be publicly owned or publicly leased for at least X amount and a grant agreement being,
Between the state and
We
municipality.
need that grant agreement.
So, and grant agreement in place between the state and municipality prior to funds.
prior to funds being released.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, and this is for Commissioner Farrell.
Okay.
Just in terms, I'd be surprised if the grant agreement wasn't in place before the money was released. Does that happen?
We would never release money
Okay.
before.
So that would be the usual process where there'd be some agreement, grant agreement. So it would just be released and then you figure out the agreement later.
Yeah, we always have the grant
Just a
agreements for
We
it.
should make sure that the language states a grant agreement needs to be in place
Yeah.
before the money's released.
That's fine. Yeah, that wouldn't change.
Yeah, according to these terms.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so
We
that,
gotta
so,
work up some language.
yeah, so why don't you all work on the like, or do you want to?
No,
Okay, then,
then
let's-
let's probably clicking away.
chop, chop.
Yeah.
What
But
else?
we keep as well, you keep them as municipally owned.
Publicly owned.
You're changing it to publicly owned.
Yeah, just because, it could be a town, it could be state. I just think publicly owned is. All right. I mean, in this case, it would be town owned or municipally owned. Generally, I'm fine with publicly owned, but municipally owned is fine. Cause then it's a town or a city.
Just depends how publicly owned is defined to make it a
Then
little
let's-
broader than we
I don't have
can.
a stake.
Then let's just keep it municipally owned.
Yeah,
And
keep it
that's
municipally
fine.
Cause the
Yeah.
testimony is they're working with the communities. Working with it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
But keep it municipally owned.
yeah, yeah,
To be real clear,
that's fine with me and
to be real clear.
fine with you all.
Mhm.
You just want to-
So we're saying municipally owned or long-term agreement, leased agreement with the municipality. And a grant agreement needs to be in place prior to the release of the state dollars. Is that what we're all saying?
That's, I thought we might, define long-term.
It's helpful to say something.
Yeah,
So John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel, here's what I currently have, which does have a particular durational requirement. So 2 ACCD for municipally owned or municipally leased for a term of at least 30 years. Infrastructure improvements that support the development of newer rehabilitated housing, provided that a grant agreement shall be in place between the state and the community prior to the release of funds.
sounds good.
You have the alternatives of municipally owned or municipally leased, and you do have a specific durational requirement, at least 30 years. And then a grant agreement has to be in place.
That sounds good to me. Yeah. Well, you all can talk about it among yourselves. We'll talk about it among ourselves.
And then we gotta get back to the other.
Right, which,
Decision.
what's our deadline?
Scott left somewhere.
Okay, so then we, if he's not,
Yeah, I wrote it very.
okay,
I'm sorry, we ready to talk about all of that right now?
No.
I don't think so.
Madam Chair, am I still needed or?
Well,
You will be needed.
I don't stay in the room.
No, no, go, does anyone have any questions for, okay, I think we're good.
Okay.
So thank you. So you can get out of that chair, if that's your. So I think next we should separate and chat. And then we still need to obviously talk about the other proposal.
Are you
that
clear on the moving pieces on that other?
I am, that's what I was asking. Are we ready to talk about that as well?
No, we talked first.
No, I mean us. or-
Yeah.
Are you clear?
So when we
on
come
all the
back-
Moving pieces?
When we come back, we're gonna be talking about essentially the ends.
Maybe.
We don't know.
Well,
You're
that's-
responding.
Well, we're gonna have two things. We're
We
gonna
got some
still
new
have this
language. that
new
John
language.
used.
Okay.
And we're gonna talk about the rest of this, and then in theory, we'll be done.
We'll see.
Potentially.
That is possible, and that is a hope.
But
Okay,
you understand all the moving pieces on a package. We're not saying no to anything.
Yeah.
We're just shifting things around.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
yeah, actually, you know what, shoot,
And
Wanda,
he's got this written.
can you get Wanda back, because I would like to ask her.
I'm gonna get this clear before we leave.
Okay, I would like to get Wanda back and ask her about thank you for coming back.
You're welcome.
This looks really good, but I would just, do you mind,
Gosh,
testifying?
do you want us here as well?
If you want to be here, I just want to,
Okay.
since she's here and
Yeah.
since we made the changes. Also under time duress, so that we could make other things work. We relied on the commissioner, and I completely understand if she sees, after going back and looking at things that you're recommending a different thing now, that's perfectly fine. I just want to double check that that is the case, and see if we have any questions about those. So you were,
So for the record, Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. I was outside, so there may be a piece of this conversation that I missed. You're asking me to confirm.
okay, let me go back. When, I think it was last week, when this committee had proposed to move funding
Correct.
out of the courthouse, was mainly where it was the
Right,
what
I
we're
worked
doing
with the
courthouse?
committee and identifying other projects that you could potentially take funding from.
Yes,
Understanding that these were still critical projects, which we agreed to,
exactly.
and that we would have to have funding put back into those. Those projects were not going to stop.
Yes, and most of those projects were in 2027.
Correct.
So at least what I was thinking, and I think we talked about it, was we would have time to backfill and see, like, especially in the three acre parcel, we don't know how much you're gonna be able to do
Correct.
in 2026. So 2027, we have some movement.
And Madam
But
Chair,
now-
I shared that with the committee that I did work on, that they've taken a different position.
Okay,
So
but
can I explain a little bit on the 3 acre? Because they had money last year as well. So they've got enough money to get through plenty last year and the year before in this particular year. We're concerned about going forward and meeting the
It
permit
is
requirements.
the money that you identified in the money that was supported in 27 that we asked for, that we had talked about. If we take it away, it has to go back, is the money to complete that 3 acre storm water.
Because you're
we can't
required by the permit.
That's correct. We can't spend it until 27. So that was a pot of money that we said, you can use that, but it has to be replaced. We have to put it back.
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And the only thing
Okay.
and so what I understand is, while I did identify these projects, I said these are the lower risks to close that gap, because for me, the White River Junction project is the highest priority because we are occupying in January. I understand the House has said we want to go back to our original request. So
Okay.
my testimony stands.
Okay, And the firing range and 32 Cherry also.
32 Cherry Street's just a little bit of a delay. The firing range, we have not started planning. Even for that project, we are aware of it. It is on our list of projects we must do.
And you prefer to have the funding there in 27.
I don't have our request was to have it there in 27. I worked with the committee saying these are areas where you could identify funds and not jeopardize a project moving forward.
Okay. Okay. That's all. Do we have any questions? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions on it? Okay. I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna depart
Yeah.
temporarily.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can I offer that Scott is on his way with information that you will be interested in?
oh, timing,
You may want-
deadline.
There is I don't know that I can accurately read his text to me, that there was 700K found and heard that they were spending 300, but missed 400.
You know what? Let's just let.
What's the
I'll ask you,
100K
please.
was found?
I just want to make sure that people aren't agreeing, aren't walking away thinking that something has been, I'll let Scott do this.
Yeah, no, it was timing that we were waiting on for Scott, and we have
It's
the
700.
floor at one, you guys, so
Oh, 700 on the.
on
Yeah.
capital,
Yeah, it must
maybe,
be
and
here.
cash might
It's
be.
gotta be here.
All right, let's not even speculate.
That's right.
I should, let me, so can I have this?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted to make sure it was clear. I wrote it as clearly as I could. It's great. Thank you.
I think it's.
My notes and
Did you look at this?
was my third draft, so.
Does it work? I know we're moving money around. but
You
things
should,
are being whole.
Yeah, this is very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,